Hey friends, Fredric Adell here and welcome to this new tutorial about Blazor WebAssembly in .NET 6. We're going to build a walking skeleton, and if you don't know what a walking skeleton is, well, it's boilerplate code in essence, but I would say also a little bit more, because what we are going to do is we will create a Blazor WebAssembly ASP.NET Core hosted project or solution with these three projects, then the Blazor WebAssembly client and the Web API server project, and also the shared project, and also a SQL Server database that we will access with the Entity Framework Core 6, because we're using .NET 6, and a walking skeleton. Well, this is the complete implementation. So we got the complete way from the client to the web API and to the database, and then the whole way back. And we will also include some, well, I would say better practices. For instance, we will not use fed controllers like in the example application. Then with the weather forecast controller, I'm sure you know that already. We will use services, for instance, use dependency injection then to use these services and so on. So I think lots of great stuff, and this is done in just an hour or under an hour approximately. So yeah, I think that's pretty great, and I really hope that you learned something. And if you learned something, I would really appreciate it if you click the like button and maybe even subscribe to my channel. It really means a lot to me and it does make a difference. And maybe you also want to click the bell icon to get a notification when I upload a new video. Additionally, if you want to get YouTube videos, courses, tutorials like this one here in your inbox and a bit earlier, then maybe you want to subscribe to my newsletter, because then you will get this video here in your inbox and also get early access, for instance, to the upcoming Blazor e-commerce course, and you will be the first to know when this course is released, because this month I hope it will be released. So maybe consider subscribing to my newsletter. Again, would really appreciate that. And of course, last not least, everyone donating, buying some coffee or coffees. Thank you so much for your support. I will love you forever, because I really need the coffee to stay awake when my little boy is asleep, and currently he is asleep, and I'm pretty happy about that, because this is the only reason, the only time actually to be able, where I am able to make all these videos. Okay, so enough about that. If you want to give me a coffee sometime, check out the links in the video description. Thank you very much. Now let's start with the tutorial. All right, we start by creating a new project, and the template we want to use here is the Blazor WebAssembly app. You can find it, well, in my case here in the recent project templates, or here in this list, or you just search for it and then you will find Blazor WebAssembly app. Let's try that real quick. There's Blazor, and we got a WebAssembly and server. I am using here a Blazor WebAssembly app, typical SPA or single page application structure if you want. So this is what we are going to use here. And since this is a walking skeleton, let's just call this also Blazor walking skeleton, and we click next. The framework we want to use is .NET 6. That's correct. We don't need authentication here. Configure for HTTPS is correct. And now, very important, please select ASP.NET Core hosted, because with that we will get 3 projects in that solution. You will see this in a minute, and maybe you already know this when you have subscribed to my channel. Hope you did, and if not, maybe that's your chance now. This means that we get 3 projects in a solution, meaning the Blazor client, the web service as a server project, and then also a shared project for all our models. So we create this thing. It takes a little while, of course. And here we are. As you can see, as I just mentioned, we've got the client project here, the server, and the shared. You see the server project is the starting project. And real quick, maybe we can already start this application. Have a quick look. I won't go into much detail here. Again, maybe you know this already, maybe you want to dive deep, then I really recommend watching my other videos or my online courses. But for now, here we are. We've got this page. This is the typical Blazor WebAssembly design. We've got a home page, we've got a counter page, beautiful, and also fetch data, which is already making a web service call. As you can see here in the console now. Let's close this here in the network tab and maybe change the view here. We reload and you can see this is an actual get call that was done, and as a response we get all this weather forecast data. Okay, beautiful. And what we want to do now is we want to, well, work with that kinda and build on top, meaning when you create your Blazor WebAssembly application with a web API and also Entity Framework, Entity Framework is not here at all, no SQL Server, nothing like that, but we will do this here in this tutorial. And when you want to work with that, then what you may want to do is you can have a look at the, where is it now? The controllers here, the weather forecast controller, how this is done, that's nice. And also the page here, the fetch data page, where you can see the actual web service call. My machine is really slow today, I don't know why. Please accept my apologies. And as you can see here, again, this is the get call, but what I don't like here is, and this is why I'm doing this tutorial, among other reasons, of course, but one reason is, it's not best practice to do this here. What you want to do is you want to build your controllers, but also services that you can inject into your controller, because at the latest, when you want to work with Entity Framework, you have a data context you have to create, and you also have to inject the data context. Now you can do that here in the controller as well, not here. As you can see here, they've got already the controller injected the logger, for instance. But if you would have a service and the data context and other stuff, then you would have to inject everything here into the controller. But with a service only that is then using the data context, you only have to inject the service here. Long story short, let's build this thing, and then I hope you know what I mean by that. Okay, again, I don't want to go too deep here with debugging and so on. This is covered in other videos and online courses. But what we want to do now is first create our model. And this is really simple. We add a new item, or a class, could have been also a class anyways. And I want to create superhero. So superhero, this is what I want to do. Let's make this public. And this thing gets some properties like the ID, then the first name, also the last name, and yes, let's also give this string empty by default. This is kind of new with .NET 6 and C#10, but anyways, let's do that. And we also got our hero name. All right, string empty. Okay, I think that's okay for now. This is our model, and that model now is something we also want to see in a database. So again, we've got the client, we've got the server, the shared project, but the database is crucial here, of course. So only with that you got the full stack way, the complete spectrum from client to server and database. Well, and to do that, we have to install Entity Framework and also configure this thing. Now, one thing that is important, of course, if you've never done this and you've never installed SQL Server, for instance, well, you first have to Google for SQL Server, for instance, and I think this first hit here is already sufficient, or is the right one. For instance, here you can download SQL Server Express, so please just Google for it. You can also use SQLite, for instance, or any other relational database in this case. And what I also like to do is get the SQL Server Management Studio. So maybe you want to also Google for SQL Server Management Studio, and that's the one. And here you can download this thing. You can also manage your database with Visual Studio, but I don't know. I just like the SQL Server Management Studio. And with that, you can check out your database, your tables, keys, and whatnot. All right, so this is this thing. And the other important thing, of course, is Entity Framework itself. I've got it installed already, but I'm going to show you now how you do this. So for instance, if I just enter .NET, and the .NET Framework, of course, but when you're at this point now and you already have your project, then I'm pretty sure that you've got the .NET 6 framework installed. But anyways, what is not installed automatically with the .NET Framework is Entity Framework Core 6. And this is what we have to do here now. You can see when you open the Package Manager console, other way to do this or to open this is View, Other Windows, and then Package Manager console, or a shortcut you will see here. This is the German keyboard layout, so don't get confused by that, please. Anyways, with that command, you see if Entity Framework Core is installed. If not, you can do the following. So .NET tool install, and then -- global, and then .NET EF. I've got it already installed, as you can see here, but let's just do this together again, because I can simply uninstall that with this command. Now it's uninstalled, and when I want to install it again with this thing here, then I get the latest version, but 6.0.1 already was the latest one. All right, so that's nice. We've got Entity Framework Core installed. And now the next thing is we have to install some packages to make everything work. And for that, we go to our server project, right click, and then manage some NuGet packages. Make sure to click on the Browse tab. Happens quite often for me that I am here in the Install tab, search for something and it's not there, and I need some seconds to realize, oh, okay, I was at the wrong tab. But anyways, first thing we need is Microsoft. See, I did this a lot. Microsoft Entity Framework Core. All right, so please install this. Click your way through. Beautiful. And then the next one is Entity Framework Core Design. We really need this for our code first migration, what we'll do in a minute. So please hit or install this thing. Accept. And now already the last one. Now this depends on the database you want to use. You can see it here already. There's SQL Server, SQLite, and other ones as well. Pretty sure about that. But well, in my case, I want to use SQL Server here, so just install this one. In your case, you can of course use SQLite, but then the connection string would be different as well. So pay attention here, please. And the connection string is already the next thing we want to do. Just let's double check. That's what I wanted to say. If everything is installed, yep, Entity Framework Core, Design, and SQL Server, that's nice. And now what we have to do is the connection string. So here in the app settings JSON file in our server project, what we want to do is we create a new section, call this connection strings, already suggested here, and the default name for your first connection is a default connection. And if you have the same setup as me, so really the exact same thing, meaning you have your SQL Server installed on the same machine here, then the connection string looks like this. First, the server is localhost, and then // SQL Express. Then you've got the database. Let's call this walking skeleton, for instance. And then trusted connection. And we set this to true. Okay, so server is localhost // SQL Express, then database walking skeleton, for instance, and then trusted connection true. Okay, so we've got Entity Framework Core installed. We've got our connection string. And now what we want to do is we want to add our data context. The data context, again, you will see this in a minute, is able, or we need the data context to access our database. This is in essence everything. This is the whole reason why we need this thing. But the great thing is that we can use the data context to conveniently access our tables. So our superheroes table, for instance, when it is there then. And additionally, when you want to switch the databases, for instance, from SQL Server to SQLite again, then you just change your configuration and everything should work as expected or the same way. Well, at least that's the theory, but of course databases are different and maybe a migration does not really work. But in theory, you do not have to change much and you can just switch the databases and everything is fine. Long story short, let's create a new folder here for that. So add a new folder. Typically you would call this data. And now in here we add a new class called DataContext, like that. And now comes some stuff. First we inherit from DB contexts, and as you can see now, we have to add our reference. Hey, Entity Framework Core. So great that we installed this before. If we haven't installed it, by the way, then Visual Studio is pretty smart, and I think you would get the suggestion to install this package. But anyways, with that, we kind of did it already and prepared this already. So we've got our DB context, and now we need a constructor here. So public data context. This thing needs an argument, DB context options it is with the data context class here, and we call this options, and we also have to use the base constructor here. And don't forget the parentheses, and that's it now. This is what I wanted to show you here because it explains it pretty good. I think a DB context instance represents a session with the database and can be used to query and save instances of your entity. So really conveniently access the database, update stuff, and so on. And the DB context is a combination of the unit of work and repository pattern, and so on. Read that if you want. But again, main thing why you want to use this object relational mapper. Well, this is what Entity Framework is in essence, that we can access and use our data from the database. Pretty simple, not easy, but simple most of the time. Another thing we need now, and this is crucial, we need a database set. This is a property, so we can also use the built-in snippet prop. And then we use the type dbSet with our superhero class. We have to add our reference here using Blazor walking skeleton shared. Actually, since we got C#10 here, what I like to do, oh, wait a sec. What I really like to do is we have global namespaces now, or global using directives. So in our program CS, and I'm sure bad comments are incoming now, because with that maybe the maintenance is not that easy. I don't know. We'll see what the future brings. But with that now, we don't have to add the using directive here in the data context. Ah, I love that. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So thing is here now, we call this superheroes, and to get or to remove the warning, let's make this nullable. All right. Thing here now is, why do we need this? This is a representation of our entity as a table. See it here, can be used to query and save instances of superhero. Link queries against the DB set will be translated into queries against the database, and to be more precise, against the database table. So this will also be the name of the database table, and usually you just pluralize the name of your entity you want to see here in this table. If you're interested in all the relationships, meaning one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, in entity or in the SQL Server database with Entity Framework, check out the info card because we did this already. But again, this is boilerplate code, and this is now important for our database stuff. So we've got the data context, we've got the connection string, we've got Entity Framework. What we now have to do is we have to configure SQL Server. And for that, let's save this first. We have to go to the program CS, and here now we use builder services add DB context. We use the data context here. We need another reference, indeed. And then this thing gets some options. So options, and then maybe in a new line we say options use SQL Server. All right. And here now we need the stuff we entered in the app settings JSON, and we get this by accessing the configuration, get connection string, default connection. Okay, I think that's it. Let's see. Now again, what did we do here? Well, we are registering the DB context. This is crucial here. That's why we needed the SQL Server package. And with that, then we tell this method to get the connection string we have entered here, and get connection string is a method that, well, it's here shorthand for get section connection strings, and then the name of the actual connection we want to use. Okay, with that we already registered the database, the DB context again, and now we should be able to run our first migration. Again, for that, we go to the Package Manager console. Let's clear this, and now let's have a look at the .NET EF command again, and then you can see there's not much available actually, but we don't need much. Actually, we only need database and migrations. With migrations, we add a new migration. We can also remove a migration. And with database, we update our database, so we really write that stuff and store it in the database. So first, the migration, we add one with .NET EF migrations add, and then whatever you want to call it, let's call this create initial for the initial migration. No project found. Good that this happens. This is exactly what I wanted to show you. Problem is we have to be in the server directory. Well, it's not a problem, it's just a hint. So let's go to Blazor walking skeleton and then the server directory. And now let's try that again. All right. Looks better. Build succeeded. Great. All right. So we've got our migration. All right. You see it here. I just read this comment again. And here you can see that if you did something wrong or forgot something, I don't know, then you can remove this migration. But thing is, when you updated the database with that migration, you cannot remove it just by using this command. Then you would have to, well, make some modifications to the database, and then you can remove it again. But for now, if you now have a look, what I wanted to do anyways, at your migrations folder, this one is new, generated now. And then at this file here, create initial, you see what is going to happen. And if you see that something is wrong here, then you can again remove the migration, make your changes, and then run the migration again. But anyways, we see the up method. This is the method that will be called when we update the database now. We create a new table called superheroes. That's nice. We got our 4 columns then, and also the primary key ID. And in the down method, the table would just be dropped. Okay, so I think this is correct. And now with .NET EF database update, yes, it's update. Even if the database does not exist, we use the command update. The database should be created and the table as well. You see all the commands here. Right, great stuff. Okay, so now let's have a look at the SQL Server Management Studio. Come on, there it is. And in a minute now, we should be able to see our database. All right, we connect, and here are some databases already, superhero databases here as well from the last tutorial. That's why I wanted to call this walking skeleton. That's nice. And here we see our table. Isn't that nice? We've got our columns, and right click, edit top to 100 rows. We see that nothing is there. Now we can change that, of course. We can add some data here, or we can seed data. If you want to see me seed data, tell me that in the comments. I think this is not necessary for the walking skeleton. Of course, we can do that here, but we can also add data manually here. For instance, let's add Peter Parker, who is Spider-Man. And the next one, for instance, Tony Stark, Iron Man. I just love this. All right, and another one, Bruce Wayne. All right, so we've got 3 superheroes now. We got the database. That's already a big win. And we've got our server project, client project, but we cannot access anything here now from the database, right? So let's go one step back or further. I don't know what the direction is now. We've got the database, so let's jump to the server project. You see, we did not do anything with Blazor actually, but I saved this for later. Of course, you can do it the other way around, but well, let's just do it that way today. Maybe on another day, I will show you the other direction. So I told you earlier that here you see the controller. That's nice. You can do it like that, but this is called fat controllers, meaning that you've got too much logic here. What you want to do with controllers is you want to keep them kind of dumb. Well, it's not a nice term. It's not nice to call them that way. They are pretty intelligent, of course, because they are responsible for your endpoints. They give you the option to use these endpoints to make the calls in essence. And still, what you want to do actually is just call a service method and give the arguments to that service method, then get the result and return it to the client then. So again, it is better practice to use services. And similar to the data context, we use the repository pattern here because we inject the services then in the corresponding controller. So we add a new folder now, call this services. And in the services folder, we add another folder called the superhero service. And in here now, to be able to use dependency injection, we create an interface, call this iSuperhero service. It's already public, great. And then what we can also do is we add the implementation class, and we call this thing superhero superhero service, and this one injects the I superhero service. All right. And now the last step to make this complete is we also have to register this thing. We do that with builder services, not add razor pages, add scoped, and then I superhero service, superhero service, and we add, another using directive here, and let's also make this global. Nice. Now, what are we doing here at scoped? It says adds a scoped service of the type specified in I superhero service with an implementation type specified in superhero service to the specified I service collection. Now that's important. The sentence here, with an implementation type. This means when we want to inject the I superhero service, wherever we want to inject it, then our web API knows that it has to use the superhero service implementation class. For instance, if you want to change something, but you don't want to modify this file here, instead you just copy it and change a little bit, make something different, and you want to test this, then maybe you just call the superhero service 2, you change your registration here, and everything works as well, and everything is great. You don't break any code, everyone's happy, perfect. So this is, well, a big advantage of dependency injection and doing it that way. And now let's implement this. So first, what we want to do is let's start with the implementation class first and just add a constructor here. Superhero service, we inject the data context, call this context, and we create and assign the field context. And I still have not changed my configuration because usually by default I add the underscore here, but that's not a problem. We can change that manually. So as you can see here, this is pretty similar to the stuff you see here in the weather forecast controller. Got the constructor here, inject some stuff, but this now is done in the service. And for this tutorial here, I only implement the get method. Sorry about that. If you want to see more, then of course, write it down in the comments, please. And I will do my best to create a CRUD tutorial. For instance, I wanted to do this anyways because I've got check out the info card, please. Got the CRUD with Blazor tutorial with .NET 5. And I will update this and make a complete new tutorial. Actually, it's a complete course in essence, where we create or where we implement all the CRUD operations with Blazor in .NET 6. But if you can't wait, check out my online course, of course, because there we do this as well. Anyways, get. So task, return type is task. And now here we return a list of superheroes, get all, that's okay. So let's do it like that. And here we implement this method. And what we want to do now is we get our heroes with await. That's nice. Have you seen that when you enter await, then the async keyword is added automatically. And now we access our context. And now you can already see we've got the superheroes table available here. And we just say to list async, and we got our heroes. And then in the end, we return heroes. That's correct. The OK is for the controller. So that's how we get our heroes. And now we need a new controller for that. And we want to use an API controller here. I like to use an empty controller. Of course, you can already get some code, generated code, but I think to learn, and also if you're not learning anymore, if you know this already, but still, sometimes you still have to learn something, then I like the empty controller, because with that, I have full control, I think. Okay, so this is our superhero. Why am I entering the capital E? I don't know. Superhero controller. Inherits from controller base. And what we have to do here now is again add a constructor and inject our superhero service. So that's where the magic happens now. Let's call the superhero service. We create and assign the field. Change that and add the underscore. All right. And now we add our controller method. It is a get method, so that's correct. And let's also add the return type here a bit differently. I would like to use the actual result with a list of superheroes. Get all is fine. And now what we want to do, you see it here already. IntelliCode is really, really good. It's amazing. Yeah, we're calling our superhero service with get all, and that's it. Just a sec. It's not totally right, actually. We want to use the OK here to use the 200 OK status code. I think it would still return 200 OK, but anyways, that way, I think that's a good way. It's a good way for other developers, good to read that you see here, okay, this is a controller and it returns a status code. Okay, another thing I want to mention here, why am I using the class with the type that we are returning and not just the interface? Well, this is actually only necessary for SwaggerUI, meaning if you want to test your calls and want to see example values, example results, and the actual type in a list that with SwaggerUI, then you have to define it here. And additionally, you also have to use this attribute here, HTTP GET. It would work like that. Web API is totally fine with that because the convention is when you start your method with GET anything, and then the Web API knows, okay, this is a GET method. You want to use the HTTP method GET and not post or put, delete, anything else. But for Swagger, you have to add this HTTP GET as well. So similar to the type, you have to do this here. And I think, again, regarding maintenance and readability, it doesn't hurt to add this attribute here. Okay, so we've got this covered. This is the server now. And to use SwaggerUI, we also have to add something. We have to install another NuGet package. So right-click the server project again, manage NuGet packages. And here now, got this great name, swashbuckle ASP.NET Core, not the filters. We don't need the filters. This is for authentication. Just swashbuckle ASP.NET Core. Install this, please. I accept. All right. And now again, we have to go to our program CS. And down here now we have to add Swagger. So first we say builder services and then add endpoints API Explorer. And after that, builder services, not configuration, services, add Swagger gen. That's the one. And down here now, app use SwaggerUI. We could configure this if you want to, but we don't need to. But we have to add one more line here, app use Swagger. That's the one. Okay. With that now we can start our app again. There it is, I think. Yep. What we now can do is we just go to localhost, colon and then the port, and then just swagger / index HTML. And there it is. Nice. As you can see, we've got the weather forecasts here. That's one call. We've got our schemas with the types and the properties, and we've got our superhero method with the example value, for instance. Now, to show you real quick again if I was correct with the stuff I told you, maybe we have to restart the app by ourselves. Yeah, you see, failed to load API. This is the first problem here. I don't know if you can see it here. Yeah, actions require an explicit HTTP method. So that's again why we do this. And if we just use iAction results, this will work. Don't get me wrong. But if I'm correct, yeah, you see there's not the schema for the superhero, and you do not see the example value. So if you want to see that in your documentation, make sure to use the explicit types here. And let's do that now and test this. Okay, there we are. That's nice. And now we can go to this method, try it out. You see the example value already. I really like that. That's great. And also with post and put requests or HTTP methods, you will see example values, and they are already entered in the body. So you actually don't have to type them in manually. Great stuff. And that's our call. And we see our heroes. Isn't that nice? This already works. So we've got the database complete and also the server project complete. So that's great stuff, I think. And now the next level is our Blazor WebAssembly client. So back to Visual Studio. And what we can do here, well, there are two things we can do. First thing, again, you can see here in the fetch data page that they use the HTTP call directly in the code block of this page. Of course, again, you can do it like that. It works totally fine. But it is, again, a better practice to use services here as well. And it's really similar to the services here in the web API or in the server project. So let's just do that. We add a new folder here. Call this services. We create another folder, superhero, hero service. And in here now, again, we create an interface. Superhero service. And also the class superhero service. And by the way, I'm saying all the time what you want to do, and it's better to do it that way. I'm not the .NET guru or the Blazor expert to tell you that you have to do this all the time, and this is how all the applications are implemented. This is how I did it, how colleagues of mine, friends of mine do it. It's, I think, a great way. I saw this a couple of times in the industry and also in other tutorials of Microsoft pros. So I think that this is a good way to do this. But as always in web development or software development in general, there's not only one way. Just have a look at the Node world. There, I think there's not a single app that looks like the other. There are hundreds, thousands of different ways to implement stuff. Anyways, this is just a side note. Okay, now what do we want to do here? First, we add our list of superheroes here, actually. So list superheroes. Get set. We need the reference here. And we can also add the global term or the global keyword here. Now, this is really hard to maintain when you're using it here. Maybe it's better to to add all the global using directives in the program CS, maybe just to tidy up a little bit, get some order in your code, some structure. I don't know, but for this quick and dirty YouTube tutorial, let's do it like that. And another method here, or another stuff we want to add here in the interface, is the method to get the superheroes. So task get superheroes. Yeah, why not? Okay. Now, note that I do not return the list of superheroes here. What I want to do is store the superheroes in the service as well. Not only use the method here and the HTTP call, we also store them here, and then we will create a page that is accessing the superheroes from the service. All right. So let's go to our implementation class and try to implement the interface. All right, that's good. We remove the exception here and there. All right, got our superheroes. Yeah, let's create a new empty list of superheroes here. And again, we need a constructor. So CDOR superhero service, and what we have to inject here now is the HTTP client. Again, you can see that in the fetch data page here. There they injected it like that. We will do that in our superhero page with the superhero service, but in our superhero service, well, it's pretty similar to the server superhero service implementation in this specific case here. But we do not inject the data context here. We inject the HTTP client. Call this HTTP. Create and assign the field at the underscore. And that should be it. Okay, nice. And now for our method, we say, for instance, our results first is await. You know what? We can actually store the superheroes here directly. So superheroes await, and then HTTP, and here we need the async keyword. That's interesting. Okay, HTTP, and now get from JSON async. For that we need another reference, system.net.http.json, and now we add our URL. Sorry, first we have to add the type list superhero. Now the URL, and the URL, I didn't totally forgot that. So what's the URL? Here in the superhero controller now, you see it here, right? But you probably already knew that. So this is the route of our controller. And this means API / and then in these brackets here, this is the name of our controller. So superhero, not the complete thing, superhero controller, it's just superhero. And what we could have also done is add a route here, for instance, like get all superheroes. Jesus. Like that. Or you can combine these two attributes and just add the route here. And then the route would be API / superhero / get all superheroes. But since this is our only get call, we can just keep it like that. API / superhero. And when we go back now and add exactly that here, API superhero. With that, we should get all our superheroes. What's the problem here? Possible null reference assignment. Yeah, I know that. That's new with .NET 6 and C# 10 and Visual Studio 2022. But I think we are fine here. So again, we just set the superheroes here. With await HTTP get from JSON async, we give this method the proper type, and then we get a JSON object from our web API, and then we can work with that and set the superheroes here. Great. All right, and now the page. So we add a new page here. Add Razor component, not Razor page, it's Razor component. Call this superheroes. Like that, this is a page, so we add the page directive with maybe superheroes, like that. Superheroes is great. We can also use the page title component now, which is new in .NET 6. Superheroes, like that. And now we want to display them, right? So what we can do is first, if the count of the superheroes is 0, let's just display a little text. So add if. We have to inject the service. I told you that already, right? So inject superhero service. This is our superhero service. And to be able to use it like that without the namespace, we have to go to our imports Razor file and add using Blazor walking skeleton client services superhero service. Yeah, all right, nice. And now if the superhero service superheroes count below equal 0, then we display a span with loading, maybe. Okay. And in the else case, we just display our heroes. And for that, we just use an ugly list with a for each. So add for each hero in superhero service superheroes. And then we use just the li. I know this is not, well, it's not a good design. Let's just keep it like that. So li, and we add the hero first name, the hero last name, and the hero name. Okay. And now finally, to get the data, we use a lifecycle method of Blazor. We've got 3, on initialized, on after render, and on parameters set. And we use on initialized. So meaning when the component, this component here is loaded, the on initialized method is also run, called, executed. You know what I mean? It's late, sorry. But this method then calls the superhero service, which is then calling the web API and gets the data from the database and then all the way back. So we really got our complete walking skeleton then. And just in an hour. Isn't that great? So protected overrides. There it is, uninitialized async. Nice. And in here now, we call superhero service get superheroes. Okay. I think that's it. We've got an error. Why is that? Yeah, that's correct. It's actually the await call which is missing here and the async keyword, and now the error should be, yeah, all right. Okay, no issues found. That's nice. Thank you very much, Visual Studio. We restart the application. And oh, one more thing we can add just for fun. Got the nav menu here, so let's also add a new link. It is a page at least, so the href would be superheroes. Was that the correct name? Yep, superheroes. Superheroes. And I think there's people per, yeah, people. Okay. Save that. I want to restart that manually. And now let's have a look. We go back to our home page. Yeah, nice. Okay, so this is getting interesting. So we are here now. Let's access our page, and we are getting an error. Nice. Okay, what does it say? It says can provide a value. Oh yeah, Jesus, I totally forgot to register this thing. So again, similar to the service project, the web API, we also have to add the service here as well. So superhero service. What am I doing? I need these brackets here, angle brackets. Superhero service, add the using directive, and add the semicolon. And now let's see, is it rebuilding? I don't know. Let's do that manually. Now it is. Okay. And it works. It reloaded the page, and we got our superheroes. That's nice. So we can close the console here. We see the call, the superhero call in the header. We see that this is a get call. We see the status code 200. Okay, perfect. This is the response, and here it's formatted a bit nicer. And here you can also see the list. Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Tony Stark is Iron Man, Bruce Wayne is Batman, and so on. And that's it. Let me just push that to GitHub. Blazor walking skeleton. Let's also call that .NET 6. We make this public. Yeah, create and push. And now you're able to get the code. All right. Yep, that's it. I hope again you learned something and you got something out of this tutorial. Now, of course, we've only got the R covered from the CRUD operations. We read the data. We could now, of course, add creating data, updating data, and deleting them. Well, I'm sure I will make another tutorial exactly about that stuff in the next couple of weeks, I think, when I got the time. Again, to get the time, I need some coffee. But first, if you learned something, please consider liking this video, maybe subscribing to my channel. It does make a difference. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get a notification when a new video is uploaded. Additionally, maybe you want to subscribe to my newsletter for early access of these kind of videos, and also early access to upcoming online courses and some more stuff. I promise at most I send an email once a week, so maybe consider subscribing to my newsletter. Would really appreciate that. And the last thing, guys, I love you forever for getting me some coffee again, because that's the only way to make all these videos. Staying awake late at night. Well, it's not really late, it's 10:30 now, but if you have a toddler, then maybe you know the drill. It is late. It is late because you have to get up early, like 5 o'clock maybe, but that's another story. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope I see you next time. Take care.